Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are here now with Katie Nguyen, who is a developer relations engineer here at Google Cloud. Welcome to the show, Katie, first of all.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we just wrapped up a conversation with Khulan about Gen Media. She's a creative, she's crushing it with the prompts, but how can we actually maybe automate some of the workflows? And that's what you're going to talk about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a DevRel engineer for Gen Media, and Khulan is great. And if you saw her session, she's really into prompting and a lot of creative terminology that helps you get really high quality visuals and music and audio from these prompt models. But I'm going to show you a little bit more of the programmatic side and how you can maybe automate some of this, maybe use Gemini to help with some of the creativity so that you can ideate faster and make it more agentic.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what are some of the benefits of using an agent to generate these kind of media assets?
Yeah, I think that when you're doing this and you want to create a full story, with images, with videos, with music, with narration layered in, sometimes keeping track and making sure that everything's consistent can be a challenge. But the benefit of doing this in an agentic workflow is that Gemini is going to keep track of all of this, and the agent has that memory. It's going to be able to reference and use the previous assets that it created to really create a whole story and make sure it's really cohesive.
All right. And so you're going to show us a little bit about what that looks like on Google Cloud, right?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to be doing a live demo, so bear with me on the live stream. It's a lot of live going on, but so if we jump right into it, we're going to start by running. So I've built this agent. We can talk about the code in a little bit, but it uses ADK, which is our Agent Development Kit framework. So I'm going to start by running ADK Web, which will launch the web UI where we can test some of this stuff out. So we can see now that it's up and running. So I'll flip over here. We can see in the top, I have our character story agent in a new session. So just to make sure that everything's running, I'll just say, hello, make sure it's online. It's thinking, so far, so good. All right, so it says, I'm here to help you bring a character to life and tell their story through images, video, and sound. So to get started, do you have a character idea or should I make one up?
Ooh.
I've been doing things like a friendly neon robot or like a dog getting into trouble.
Oh, I like the dog
Different
getting into
things.
trouble.
Okay.
Yes, let's go with
Okay.
that.
Let's do it. So let's generate a story about a dog that's home alone and getting into trouble.
Classic.
Yeah. Do you have a dog?
I wish. I wish.
Okay, so Gemini's back. That sounds like a fun and relatable concept. Let's nail down some details. Oh, it wants a lot of things, but you know what? Let's say I have a Shih Tzu at home, so let's maybe use that. Let's see, the dog. It's a Shih Tzu. I think I spelled that all right. Named Lulu. That's not my dog's name. I don't know where that came from, but we'll go with it. Okay, so the first step of this agentic framework is it's going to generate a sample character image based on this description using Nano Banana 2, which I think Khulan talked a little bit about. And the real benefit of this is it's able to take a lot of the natural language and preserve those details when generating outputs. So here we're going from a pure text to an image prompt, and you can see that I didn't give it a lot of storytelling on the background, but it's gone ahead and filled in a lot of the blanks to kind of help with the output a little bit more. Okay, and it looks like it's jumped right into the scene. So essentially, we'll take a look at the code, but what I did here is I asked it to create a storyline of 3 different scenes, generate images for all of those scenes, animate all of those scenes into videos, and then go ahead and layer in narration. Okay, and it's back. So
Amazing.
meet Lulu. Okay, and let's see, where is this image stored? Which is the other added benefit of agents is that you can interact with them as a creative collaborator. Stared in a folder named Lulu Story. So let's go check that out right here. You can see in my local folder where the agent is running, we have Lulu Story. And it looks like this is one of the sample images. So,
Aww.
Lulu has a bow and everything. So
Does she look like she's up to no good?
she doesn't actually. She
Yeah.
looks like she's like a perfect
But
little dog.
Second you walk out the door,
Right?
different story.
Right? Okay. So let's just say for the sake of time, that looks great. Okay, so now that it's gone ahead and it's generated a character that we think is good, now it's going to go into that story arc that I was talking about, where it, generates the 3 scenes, where it animates those into videos, it layers in audio with Lyria and with Gemini text to speech, which is the new 3.1 model we just launched that Khulan was talking about, where you're able to add in wonderful layers of audio and nuance with kind of those audio tags. All right, and we can see that from everything that I've done, I've just basically prompted with really simple prompts. I basically said, all I want is a certain dog. I've given the type of breed and a name, and it's gone ahead and completely reimagined her story from there. So you can see the prompt that it's using to generate the first video. Lulu the Shihtzu is in a kitchen, standing on her hind legs, reaching for a plate of cookies. Trouble. But you can see that using an agent kind of handles a lot of the prompting for you, where you're able to just focus on maybe your creativity or maybe your output, where you don't want to have to fine tune the prompts quite so much. Gemini is able to help you in that process, which is an added benefit of doing this a little more agentically.
Yeah.
But while this is generating, we can pop over and take a look at the code. Still see Lulu. So this is our agent using ADK. We define some tools, all using these on Google Cloud. So we're generating the VO video first, and we're doing this with the Google Gen AI SDK. You can see we're able to configure things like resolution, aspect ratio, number of videos. And for this step, we're going to make sure that every video is 6 seconds long, just for the sake of time. And we can, of course, make this a little bit longer. And then for these other ones, we actually have these really cool MCP servers built to access our Gen Media models on Google Cloud. And so what we've done here is we've used those MCP servers for things like contacting Gemini on Google Cloud, which is going to access the text-to-speech models, and Nano Banana, which is our image generation, and Lyria for music. And then we have different AV tools like FFmpeg and open source tools where they can combine all of those things together so that we don't have to worry about the video editing process, which is another benefit of doing a lot of this from the command line.
I see. Yeah, because as like from the prompting perspective, you really didn't have to provide much detail, but you've already set up basically the logic and the structure that you need for the agent to kick off this automated process from image to video and include sound.
Exactly. And fingers crossed, we can check back in that this is still running in the background, which it is. So, we don't have to, we're able to talk about other things and iterate new ideas rather than kind of looking at the model output super individually and making sure that the outputs are concise, because the agent's going to handle a lot of that.
Right.
Or consistent.
Right. Now, just kind of talking about the story and the character consistency, how is the agent able to keep the story and the characters consistent through this?
Yeah, I think one of the really awesome parts of this is that for a lot of these media models, you can start with an input image. You can do that for music. You can do that for image analysis. If you're generating like narration, you could do that for editing images and also for image to video with VO. And so I think that by generating the first image here of Lulu, which I'll bring her back up, generating the first image here, that it's really able to take that image and use that as a baseline for all the creation that it's doing going forward. So you're able to say, regenerate this dog in a different context. And then from there, you make sure you have the same dog in familiar settings and kind of the home scenario to go ahead and create a video from that single reference image. We can go ahead and check on some of the outputs here. So you can see all of these calls right here are all tool calls that we have from the MCP servers. So we're using Gemini image generation, which is Nano Banana, and then we're using VO, Gemini, and VO again. So we can look in our local folder here. We close out of this. And in Lulu's story, we can see a lot of what's happening. So we have scene 1. We've already generated the images for that. So talking about that consistency, we see the same dog right here going for that plate of cookies in a setting that looks really familiar to the initial living room that we kind of had her in. And so that's scene 1. We can see that in real time we generated scene 2. Oh, she got into even more trouble. And that's kind of the fun part about using Gemini as a creative collaborator, because, Khulan is so great at this stuff. Like, my background's in engineering, and so maybe some of the creativity doesn't come super naturally, and that's where you can use Gemini to generate ideas and kind of work with it, play around. And maybe I liked some of them better than others, so we can kind of play around with that.
Nice. Yeah, it's good for inspiration and just kind of letting it come out with the outputs. If
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know where to start, it's like the blank slate problem.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, now she's done. Now
Trouble has been complete
trouble has
now.
ended. She ate a chocolate cookie, so
Nap
that's really
time.
not good.
Yeah.
But it looks like she's sleeping peacefully.
Yeah, satisfied.
Yes, exactly. Okay, we can see. So right now, if we flip back over, we can see that the 3 scenes have all been generated from input images using the
Okay.
Gemini image generation tool. And then we generated all of the subsequent video clips with the VO generate tool. And then we've gone through and generated Lyria. You can see it's calling Lyria generate music and audio with the Gemini text to speech tool. And it's all done here. So Lulu's mischievous adventure is complete. And it kind of tells about it. So we saw in scene 1, reaching for the cookies in the kitchen. Scene 2, a snowy mess of shredded toilet paper. Scene 3, a sleepy, innocent Lulu on the sofa. And it saved it right here to Lulu Home Alone story. So let's go check that out.
Can't wait to see the output.
Lulu Home Alone. Okay, let's make sure I have the right one. All right. So this is the first time I'm hearing this too. So if we need to iterate, we have Gemini as an agent to help us.
There we
go. Let's cut to the video.
Lulu the Shihtzu was home alone, and the trouble began in the kitchen with some cookies. Then she turned the hallway into a toilet paper winter wonderland. When her humans returned, they found a perfectly
Okay. Well, I did the 6 seconds. So.
Yeah, so it cut off a little bit at the end, but you can see it like matched the narration perfectly to the scenes it generated and added them in and fit different voices and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we could even go back to the agent now and say, maybe the music was a little too quiet. See, that's great, but the music was a little too quiet. Can you make it a little louder in the final video? And that's also what's great about using agents is you can prompt with natural language to do a lot of these things instead of remembering all the API calls or writing all the code for this.
Right.
You can give agent the tools to do this, and then you can prompt it through natural language to go off and like make all these decisions on its own. So
yeah, I was going to ask about that. Just like, what's the benefit of using a skill or adding a skill to this workflow?
yeah, that's a really great question. So if we go over back here, goes out of Lulu to the actual LLM agent code that we built using ADK. Essentially, we give a really long instruction prompt about everything we want it to do. So we covered like basically everything I articulated, where we want to use image generation with Nano Banana. You want to generate each scene, generate a voiceover, generate background music, and do all of that. But this is a lot of text in an instruction. And so every time we're sending that call, we're sending this whole instruction text in the context to the LLM. And so what we can do instead is separate some of this logic out and make it even more robust in as agentic skill. And so then we can load that into this framework, which would help clean up some of this and maybe give it even more resources to make the audio even better. So for speaking of audio, if we go over here to Gen Media Voice Director, which is another open source skill that's actually all available through this repository. You want to go ahead and check that out. So we have right here in this experiments folder, MCP Gen Media, where we have all the MCP servers I used in this demo, and then some sample agents, and then all of these skills that we're talking about now, which is really awesome. But for the Gen Media Voice Director skill, essentially let's reformat this here, or look at it in a markdown file. But essentially what you can see is it talks about giving even more information to the model about how to construct some of these things. So the voice director, it has this explanation. You're an expert audio director. It talks about some of the core capabilities and basically is giving the agent all this information. So Khulan talked a lot about the expressive audio tags, and you can see that it tells the agent how to do that, because we didn't provide that necessarily in the instruction. So putting this information in a skill that it can just call when it needs to generate that audio part is really beneficial to the agentic framework and gives it even more foundation in how to get the most out of these models. It talks about the tools it needs to call, which it is doing, but how it can kind of improve these even more. the model names, the voice names. That's something else we didn't touch on is with these models, you have access to choose from a bunch of pre-built voices. And I think agentically, when it was in this framework, since we didn't give it information on that, it was kind of just picking which one, but we could say, give a voice profile of each of the pre-built voices and say, this is a sweet and innocent voice. This is one that would maybe fit more into like a calm and soothing demeanor. So you can kind of make your agentic framework and your created assets even more cohesive by providing even more information through these types of skills.
Right. And Khulan kind of gave us a sneak peek of that because hers was very human-like and had emotions, but it's about combining a description of the type of voice with some of these emotion tags. And it's all something that you can actually automate and abstract away so you don't have to keep prompting it every time, right?
Exactly. And you can, offload this to a lot of, Gemini to be able to kind of try to understand this a little bit better. And you can do this with a whole bunch of different skills too. Like I just showed the audio one, but if you go back in here into this GitHub repository, we have different ones. Like we have, if you're a Gen Media image artist, and then this skill, you can basically see how it talks about how to get the most out of Nano Banana image generation. And it gives you different kind of narrative descriptions. It shows you how to render text with an image so you can control even more of these things and help the prompts to be even more robust so that you're able to kind of evaluate some of this content and then possibly even have the agent help you evaluate some of it as well.
Right. Well, I want to dig into that. How do you actually do evaluation and evaluate content in this type of agentic loop?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in this example that we did right here, we didn't really touch on that. But another really awesome way that we could do is create like an image evaluator agent in addition to the storyboard creative agent. And we could have it take in and use LLM as a judge in a way to take in the media, compare it against the original prompt. Did it adhere and create an asset that did everything it was supposed to? Did it stick to the character really true to size? Like, is Lulu's bow exactly where it's supposed to be, like from the initial image? So a lot of those fine-tuned details that is a lot of human preference and still, requires human evaluation to make sure everything's exactly the way you want it and make sure that you brought your vision to life. But also you can, do some of this evaluation and have it as a separate agent within your agentic framework. And, rather than basically you could have the agent fact check every image that it generated before it turned that into a scene with VO so that we make sure that there's nothing. Or like, for example, in the audio that we saw, how it like ran over slightly. So it was only 6 seconds. We could say, oh, that, the agent would be able to detect that and then regenerate the audio and recreate a script based on the given time frame. And, you could use some of that so that we don't have to go back and continuously run this, but the agent could self-correct that.
Okay. And so it sounds like, I think, when it comes to LLMs, it feels like evaluation is possible because it's an LLM, it's a language model. With image, you can even do that. An AI model can still help you evaluate whether or not it's aligning with the instructions for even an image or a video, which is like kind of mind-blowing, actually. Yeah, it's cool.
Absolutely. We have, a lot of frameworks to do this. We have to make sure that the output is adhering to the prompt. It'll generate a bunch of questions based on the prompt to make sure that the image actually reasons across those. And with, Gemini is really awesome at multimodality. So we're able to kind of analyze those images even with Gemini and then fact check a lot of these questions to make sure that everything's aligned.
Yeah, the contextual understanding of a multimodal like output, right? So that's one of the unique capabilities.
Yeah.
Very cool. Anything else you'd like to show us before we wrap up?
Well, let's see how Lulu's final image or video did if we were able to switch the music. Let's see. So this said, Lulu Home Alone story, louder music. Very creative
title,
right? Louder music. I just can't see it right there. All right, let's see if we can play this one and see if the music's any louder.
Lulu the Shihtzu was home alone, and the trouble began in the kitchen with some cookies. Then she turned the hallway into a toilet paper winter wonderland. When her humans returned, they found a perfectly...
I hear the violins rising. Yes. So I know it's noisy here, but yes, I hear the violins.
Exactly. And so, it is able to generate music based on the scene, but you can use different tools too to like adjust that, which is awesome. You can just prompt that in natural language and this kind of an agent will be able to assist with that.
Very cool. Well, thanks for showing us how you can actually bring agent workflows into a Gen Media type of use case.
Yeah.
For us creatively non-creatives that might need some help there. So.
I love that title. Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us for the live stream. And for everyone else, if you are interested in getting your hands on this and learning, then we will share the code labs with you in the descriptions and the comments later. Thanks again, Katie.
Thanks so much, Stephanie.
And see you all soon.
Bye.